March 14, 2012, my son Thomas lost his battle with the disease of addiction. I now belong to a club that no parent should ever belong to. Do you know the signs? Do you know the trends that children are doing in today's world? Do you know the signs and symptoms? Do you know the signs and symptoms of drug abuse? I want to empower and educate Long Islanders by bringing a force of professionals and how to prevent the disease of addiction. Long Island in Crisis. Good evening and welcome to Long Island in Crisis. This show is dedicated to the education and empowerment for parents and any loved ones that's dealing with their families or loved ones' addiction. I lost my son Thomas on March 14, 2012, and I've become just a strong advocate to help people navigate for treatment of this disease, because there still is a big shame and stigma that goes along with someone suffering with the disease of addiction. Tonight, I am so pleased to have Larry Glenz here, and Larry is the author of Forgiven Kevin. So, Larry, tell me, what is the date that you lost your son?
I lost Kevin on Valentine's Day, February 14, 2010. And that was after 7 years of addiction. Yeah, 7 years of rehabs and 7 years of recovery and relapse.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of relapses and really short recovery periods until the last one, which was about 9 months. So over those 7 years, I guess we were in 3 inpatient facilities. I'd say countless outpatient facilities, maybe 7 or something like that. We had addiction psychologists. We covered all the bases. You know, you had
Yes.
7 years. If you would have told me, Linda, that if I had 7 years to solve this problem, to know that my son's an opiate addict, and I would have told you, you're crazy if you don't think I can fix this, you know. Well, I guess the key thing I learned was we don't have the ability to fix it. Once an addict's an addict, the ball's in his court from that point on.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely.
You can love him, you can support him,
But you can't enable them.
and that's the hard part.
That's the hard part.
Yeah.
It's a very hard part to try to find that balance.
It is.
Where you're letting go, because you're afraid to let go, let's face it. But unfortunately, I know you didn't cause it, you can't cure it, and you can't control it.
The 3 C's.
The 3 C's.
Yeah.
And the 3 C's just are horrific. Because you want to do something, you're helpless because this is your baby. You know, you got to let them fall when they're little, but there comes a time where, you know, if it was any other disease, but this disease leaves you feeling absolutely powerless.
Yeah, and if you would, you know, back when I found out first about it, which Kevin was a junior, I guess, at UMass, and a Division I lacrosse player, high school All-American, on a scholarship, playing great too, great lacrosse player.
You were his coach.
I was his high school coach.
Yeah.
And together, we won 2 state championships. The only state championships, team championships in Lynbrook history in any sport, boys or girls, in all the history. And we won them in his junior and senior year, and he was one of the key figures on the team. So if you would have asked me back when he graduated high school in 2000, I would have said life is perfect. Kevin's Kevin's the all-American boy. He was as popular as anybody. He had tons of friends, girlfriends, played 3 sports, scholarship athlete. Couldn't be better. And I thought things were perfect. But you know, even then they weren't, because what I didn't know was that Kevin was addicted to pot, even as a senior in high school. Everything I know about,
Gateway drugs?
yeah, everything I know about Kevin's drug addiction, I know from him, or about these kind of drugs, I know from him during his periods of recovery. Because
Okay.
when Kevin was in recovery, he was all about getting better. He was
Yes.
all about confessing everything and explaining everything and turning it around. But when you hit the relapse, now you've got to start lying again.
Yeah.
But you can tell now.
Oh, you
You can
always
tell.
know.
You know something's
You know.
good, something's not right now.
You know
You
it
know?
before you even see them. You
Yeah.
can feel it.
Yeah.
You can feel it in the air. There's a whole different, just the attitude changes just a little bit. You know, and that old, because I say it all the time, Thomas, my son, all-American boy, charismatic, smile, lacrosse goalie, excellent athlete, could light up a room, all of those things. That boy I miss every second of every day. Thomas, the addict, I don't miss. I don't miss the manipulative, the lying, they do anything. Their soul, they're kidnapped. It's the best way to say it. They're just kidnapped. They're not there anymore. They become a host for the disease to thrive on.
It's true. It's
Yeah.
true. And even, you know, when Kevin passed, for some reason, I was able to connect to his spirit. I had worked on this for a while. I've got a spiritual path that I follow. And it's been 5 years, but I get along great with Kevin right now. And the addict was tough to get along with. You know,
Very
the addict
tough.
was tough to get along with, because he'd blame everybody else.
Yes.
And everything else. And he only admitted to what he was absolutely caught at,
Absolutely.
you know?
And even then they would try.
Yeah. as
And
best
even then they
could.
would try
Yeah.
not to admit to it.
Yeah. So, yeah, the addict is tough. You know,
The
there's no
addict is
question
tough.
about it. And those periods of recovery, even though they seem awfully brief compared to the, you know, and sometimes I didn't know when he was high or not. Like we went to AA meetings together,
Mm-hmm.
and we read the big book together, and we did all this. He was high, but he was playing the game. He was
He's
going
walking
to an
that fine line.
yeah. You're going to outpatient rehab, which I called rehab-like. You know, like it wasn't the real deal. I mean, it can be.
It can be.
It can be, but
If the person is completely,
yeah. But this is
entrenched in
what
it.
he used in order to get me off his case.
Yes.
Or his mother off his case.
Yes.
You know, I'm going to rehab. I'm you know. I'm
going to
all good.
outpatient, I'm going to my
Yeah,
meetings.
yeah. And sometimes he was. But there were long periods where he wasn't,
Yeah.
and he was bluffing. And,
And the only person he was lying to was himself,
Yeah.
really, ultimately.
yeah. Yeah.
That
that's true.
drug, the opiates, heroin, such a hold. Just,
Well, that's the thing, you know, it to somebody who doesn't know that,
yeah.
like let's say I didn't know it then.
I had
It's-
people say to me, take his phone away. Just tell him to stop. Doesn't, you have no idea what you're dealing with until you've lived through the chaos and the hell that it is that path. Because when that's in your house, money's missing, jewelry's missing, you name it, it's going to be gone.
Yeah, they have to steal
They have to.
because you know
They don't
with-
want to.
No, with a heroin addict though, it's not like you can take a day off.
No.
You know, it's not like you take a day off or you do it on Tuesday and Friday or something like this. It's not like that. You have to have it every day, or all you do is think about getting it.
Yes.
And on the second day, you're a complete mess. Third day, you're so sick that you'll do anything
Anything, I know.
in order to get it.
To watch,
Yeah.
I mean, thinking back with Thomas, first off, skinny, with a lot of clothes. That was always the one sign too. When more layers started to come on, I always knew that we were much farther along not in recovery. But to watch them shake and the vomiting and they can't, their skin crawls. That's how he described it to me one time.
Yeah,
Just can't even be in your own skin. It hurts.
yeah. The detoxing is
Yeah.
awful.
It's brutal.
Yeah. And so it seemed like, to me in the beginning, when I didn't really buy into the idea that it was a disease, to me it was like,
Just stop.
yeah, it was a character flaw.
Yeah.
What's the matter with you? Don't you know this can't work? This is not sustainable? Can't you figure that out? And I would get a reaction like, look, Dad, I know you think that my love for you or for Mom, I ought to be able to do this, because I love you and respect you. But I'm sorry, it just doesn't work that way, Dad.
Yeah.
It's not, and he'd say things like, you can't possibly believe that I want to be like this. Nobody would want to be like this.
Nobody chooses it.
Yeah.
Nobody, and that's what infuriates me with the shame and stigma of the disease, that people will honestly say, well, that's their choice. Let them do it. It doesn't matter. That they're choosing to do that. No one chooses that road. No one. It is not the path that anyone would willingly take and continue down. That's that fall. No way. I explain it to people, just they didn't have the shutoff valve. So that first substance that either Tom or Kevin had is, and when I hear parents say, it's only pot that they're smoking, or it's only beer that they're drinking, if they're 12, 13, 14 years old, they shouldn't be doing that, number one. But number two, they're forever, if they don't have that shutoff valve, we're going down a path that you don't want to even begin to imagine. Because not everybody becomes a heroin addict, but every heroin addict has started with pot or alcohol,
Right.
or cigarettes, for that matter. And I've spoken to enough people in rehabilitation, and was all the gateway drugs.
Yeah. Well, and what I didn't understand, when you lose your son,
Huh.
you think back of what I should have done differently, all the things I could have done differently. I mean, that's pretty natural for a parent to wonder that.
Of course.
And I've heard from the experts in substance abuse that 30 people could have some beer, smoke some pot, and they could do it or not do it. But one of those, maybe, is hardwired for addiction.
Exactly.
And once they start, there's no red light.
Right.
It's all green.
It's all green.
And I can't tell you how many times he told me, when he was doing well, he said, look, Dad, I can't tell you that if somebody waved this stuff under my nose that I'd be able to say no. Even though I'm clean, I dream about it at night. I dream that I did it at night, and then I wake up. And
I'm missing it.
I know I didn't do it, but I want to.
Yeah.
And then maybe I get through that day, okay, I mean, everything evens out, and then I dream I did it again the next day. And everything's okay, but then all of a sudden, it's there.
Yeah.
And
It's
there's
there,
no...
the want, the craving, the everything.
Craving
The craving.
is incredible.
Yeah.
And I don't have that disease. So when I looked at it, I said, well, you got to do the things necessary to stop.
Exactly.
And I get, I know. And he did, but he couldn't. And at the end, it seemed like it seemed like he quit. He went out to Iowa because he has cousins out there, and he couldn't get clean in New York. He kept relapsing, so his cousin Rod came out to, and he was 40 years old. He was a former Marine. He said he loved Kevin, and he says, "Well, why don't we take him out to Iowa, and we'll put him in rehab there, and then he can live with me, and he'll be out of that New York environment." Now, I had heard that a change of location doesn't change anything.
You can find what you're looking for anywhere in the United States, in the world.
Yeah, and eventually he did.
Yeah.
But the way he did, like you say, waved under his nose, he ran into somebody he was in rehab with that had relapsed. Ran into him in like a 7-Eleven. And the guy flashes an 80 milligram of Oxycontin at him. And he had $80. And the switch was made.
And there it was.
There it was, 9 months shot,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And you go back to ground zero
yep,
almost immediately.
yeah. And the scary part then is that now that they've relapsed, they don't know the dosage. It's different now.
Yeah.
So a lot of these kids that are dying, and we know that they're dying all the time now, they're dying every week, they're dying right here.
We lose one
Yeah.
one a day on Long Island.
Yeah, and a lot of them overdosed because they stopped and relapsed and didn't get the dosage right. Others
My
of them-
son came home from
Yeah,
rehab, and the next morning, my 18-year-old son found his brother. He was going to go to a sober house with a friend of his that was already out there in the sober house doing well, and he didn't make it. He figured one more time. I don't know what he figured, you know. I guess I don't understand. I don't have the disease. I understand the disease. I understand, you know, and you say, why? Why that one more time? Why? But you can't say why.
yeah. Well, that's like when Kevin went to Iowa for rehab. The reason he went, because I said to Rob, I said, you know, Kevin's not going to go to Iowa and go to rehab. I'm having trouble. I have a lot of trouble getting him into rehab all the time. So he's not going to go to Iowa. He's not going to go with you. And he says, well, you know, you can ask him, right? So I said, yeah, we'll ask him. So I said, hey, Kevin, you want to go live with Rob, go to rehab in Iowa, and then live with Rob in Iowa, in recovery? And he said, yeah, I'll go. And I was shocked.
Right.
But I didn't know, what I didn't know was that he was just one step ahead of the law. They were closing in on him. They had been stealing.
Okay.
And the cops had captured some of the people that were involved. And they were coming for him. So he was ready to get on a plane. He had bags of heroin taped to his leg when he got on the plane. He figured he was going to get out of New York. And then when he got there, he shot up the heroin. And I said, you shot up the heroin in order to go into rehab? And he said to me, he looked straight at me, he said, well, what else was I going to do with it? Of course, I shot it up. Now, for somebody like anybody, I'd say you think that's crazy.
Exactly. You think
But to an
it's...
addict,
No, it's...
that makes complete sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I know, it's crazy, but all stories, so all parents that unfortunately, and that's what I call, we belong to a club that no parent should ever belong to. And I don't want any more members. And unfortunately, just spoke to a woman yesterday, just lost her daughter 10 days ago. Same thing, 9 months clean. Had a bad weekend. Why? You know, why are so many people looking to escape reality, number one? So we talk about coping skills and the ability to get through a storm. It's not that storms are not going to come. They're going to come, but you have to be equipped to handle the storm. Who do I go to sit in the storm to get to the other side? How do I tap into my higher power, to all of those things so I can be, and it's okay. I'm in the storm, but I'm going to come out the other side. And I think in the world today, we don't have that for a lot of young people, so they are turning to substances at a much younger age. And if they waited till, the interesting thing to me is if a 12, 13, 14-year-old would wait until they're 22, 23, 24 to have their first substance, would they still be hardwired for addiction? Would their chances go down? We'll never know that. But our job now is to educate more parents not to have that. Our kids need to be equipped much better.
Yeah. And, I didn't really think about the fact that my son, Kevin, might be hardwired for addiction, but I should have. If we look back in our family, both sides of Kevin's family, there's addiction all through. There's alcoholism, there's addiction, it runs pretty thoroughly.
Yeah.
And because I didn't have it, and my brother didn't have it, and my oldest son didn't have it, I didn't consider it. But I should have. It's deep in the family, so...
Kids at a very young age need to know about making healthy choices. It's not a good choice or a bad choice, because our kids were good kids. All kids are good kids. Let's put that right out there. All parents mean well, but stuff happens. But I think when you have the disease in your family, you can have a discussion with a 6-year-old or a 7-year-old about making healthier choices, and maybe why we can't go visit grandma or grandpa or an aunt and uncle because they're not making a healthy decision today or a healthy choice. So they're not behaving in a way that we're going to visit with them today. Do you know what I mean? It has to start planting the seeds so that they understand what, the consequences of making that choice is when they are faced with it. But there are all these kids that want to escape reality. And as a society, we have to take a step back and ask why.
Yeah.
What's going on in the world that they don't want to be here or, be present? We were just talking right before the show, if we taught our kids to meditate or do different things, I don't know what the answer is, but I know that education in elementary school, all of these things is necessary.
Yeah. Education has got to be the only way. We've got to educate them earlier. And
parents.
And parents. And, I don't know what I could have done differently when he was younger, like to keep him away from pot, let's say. Because it's pretty much what some guys do, right? I mean, it's, and a lot of kids have done that and
been fine.
Went on to lead productive lives.
Correct.
But there are those who are hardwired.
Yes.
And once they smoke pot, they'll smoke pot every day.
Yes.
And
then
Kevin
they
was
need
one of
something
those.
more.
I didn't know that Kevin was smoking pot every day. And, a decent question would say, I mean, I was at home every night with Kevin. I was a teacher in the school. I was his coach. So a natural question to ask me would have been, well, where were you? What were you doing?
Right.
When Kevin was getting high every day? And I don't have a good answer. All I can say is that it seemed like everything was going good. Kevin was winning championships and getting good grades and going to college and doing all the things that you'd want a kid to do. Did I really look real? If you would have asked me, was he smoking pot? Does your son smoke pot when he's a senior? I would have said, probably, maybe. I know the guys he's hanging out with. Yeah, they probably smoke some pot, and wasn't scared of it at all.
Right.
Because the kid was doing his job.
Right.
And
that's, I'm going to hold you on that thought, and we're going to be right back after this message.
Stretching under sedation or manipulation under anesthesia is a very gentle, very precise procedure to very slowly release any scar tissue that is formed as a result of a traumatic injury. Many people ask, how does this work? Will I get hurt? Will you stretch me too far? We only stretch the body part to its normal range of motion. After completing the post-MUA rehabilitation program, it's very common that our patients say to us, hey, I can play ball with my kid again. Hey, I can bowl again. Hey, I can enjoy hiking again. This is what makes it rewarding to us as practitioners.
Galaxy Luxury Coach is a full-service limousine and party bus company. Family-owned and operated, we are an industry leader with over 25 years of experience in providing best-in-class luxury transportation for your special event. Whether it's your precious wedding day, an all-day wine tour out east, your high school prom, that special birthday, or just an amazing night on the town, our professional chauffeurs stand ready to ensure your special event is truly special. Galaxy Luxury Coach has one of the largest and modern party bus fleets in the New York area. Our party buses are simply nightclubs on wheels. Concert sound systems, light shows, lasers and strobes, multicolor LED lighting brilliantly lights your party bus inside and out. For corporate and more laid-back events, we will cater to your specific needs and requests. What sets Galaxy aside from all others in the luxury transportation industry is our attention to detail in customizing our services to your special event. At Galaxy, it's all about you and your guests. Galaxy customers return time and time again because they know they can trust Galaxy to help deliver those lifetime memorable moments. Step aboard and let your Galaxy experience begin.
After all the candles are blown out, after the last toast of the night, Cambridge paving stones with Armortech stand the test of time. Beautifully designed, built to last. Only Cambridge Paving Stones have Armor-Tech, our unique process that produces a rich, distinctive color. Create your own memories with Cambridge Paving Stones. Visit CambridgePavers.com.
Cambridge Paving Stones with Armor-Tech will always look like new.
I think this is a good time to tell you. You're doing okay, Mom. I can call you Mom, right? I know we haven't known each other very long, but you seem like a real keeper. You're not perfect. There was that strained carrots incident, but you're trying. You pick up my bottle every time I toss it out of my stroller. That's high comedy to an 8-month-old. You hum the Barber of Seville when you wash my hair. So cool. And your rub-downs are out of this world. Anyway, I want you to know how much I appreciate you. You know, right? How much I love you? You're doing okay, Mom.
Welcome back to Long Island in Crisis, and I'm sitting here with Larry, and it's, you know, it sucks that I have to meet you because you're part of this club, but the one thing that I, you know, having had to have this journey, or being on this journey, I've met some really amazing people. And, you know, the book, I read the book, and it's my story with different names, really. And it's so similar to all the other stories. But before we left on the break, we were talking about what do we do if we don't want to be standing where we are 5 years from now? We have to start educating parents. We have to start educating children at a much younger age to recognize signs and symptoms, to recognize risk factors, for all of these things, you know. Parents need to be a much more, and I know, especially on Long Island, it's tough to make it here. So parents are struggling, you know, with a lot of different things, you know, making a living, doing all of that, but we have to get back to just some very, very basics.
You know, the thing I think about, a lot of times I think about what we should do differently. And I don't know exactly what I mean, I would have been more alert to the smell of pot or something. I would have been more alert, knowing what I know now. But I don't know if anything fear-based is going to work. I mean, we all get so scared when we have this problem. I mean, it's the scariest. And then
It's frightening, but I don't
Yeah.
want it to be fear-based. I want to empower people
Yeah.
to know, just know, you know, there's nobody that knows your children better than especially a mom. And I don't mean anything against dads, but
yeah.
there's moms that you have an innate sense. So when you have that feeling that something's wrong, something's wrong. And by ignoring it or by saying, well, that's normal behavior for a teenager. It's not, and it cannot be sometimes, and you really don't want to start that road. You know, it's scary to face that. You know, and unfortunately in our society, if God forbid my son Thomas had, you know, cancer, they would have thrown a spaghetti dinner at the VFW for him and raised funds. But he was stricken with the disease of addiction, and it was, oh, well, you know, they went through a divorce. You know, there's always blame. And there's always, you know, there's not sympathy. But you're dealing with a mind disease, and it is classified as a disease.
Yeah.
So there needs to just be awareness. And, you know, I will tell you on the lacrosse field, if you have 30 players on your team, there are 60 parents sitting there, and if they were to talk to each other, they'd be facing a lot of the same things, but nobody discusses things anymore. You know, when I was a little kid, and you know my brother, but if I was 3 blocks over, by the time I rode my bike home, my mother knew what I did if I did something wrong 3 blocks over.
Yeah.
We need to go back to being a community that raises a child
Yeah.
and being aware and saying, well, that's not my kid, so I'm not going to worry about it. You
Yeah.
know, a lot of things need to just back to basics. Is that maybe what I'm trying to say? I don't know.
I think, you know, the reason I brought up the fear thing of as I look back, once I knew about it, well, I was all about fixing it, right? I mean, it was all about rehabs, it was all about AA or the 12 step, in particular the 12 steps, and this is what works, and
Yes.
when I didn't get the behavior from my son that I wanted, I was so fearful that I used anger and I used shame and I used guilt to try to get him to stop.
Yes.
Mostly because I was so scared
Yes.
that, well, what did happen was going to happen, right? I was so scared. And that doesn't work. The guilt, the shame, the anger, it doesn't work. And, you know, we have this, my book is being made into a movie, and we
Yes.
have a crowdsourcing, an Indiegogo campaign. You can go to forgivingkevin.com, and
I think
we're-
I'm going to hold up the book again, because for any parent, you should read this book. Whether you're afflicted with the disease of addiction in your family or not. So I think it just gives so much insight into a lot of things.
yeah,
And it taps into your faith, into your higher power.
no doubt. And that's where my strength comes from.
Mine too. You know,
Yeah.
I always, and I say it when I speak, you know, I prayed for a strong, peaceful Thomas, and many people prayed for a strong, peaceful Thomas. I have a strong, peaceful Thomas. Not how I envisioned that it would happen, but I cannot question the decision that was made.
That's right.
And I live there.
I feel the same way. I have Kevin in my heart with me all the time.
Always.
And I can talk to him. I hear his voice.
Yes.
I know it's him because he's got that sarcasm that I'm very familiar with, you know? And I can tell. But now he's on my side.
Yes.
He's like, right now, he's like a guiding angel.
Yes.
And he was no angel. You know?
Well,
So, you know, yeah.
I'm sure he's met Thomas then too.
Yeah,
So.
yeah.
Because
And so-
Thomas was no angel either,
Yeah, but beautiful kids.
beautiful kids.
Yeah.
And, you know, when you say that, it's not that they were malicious, bad. They were kids. They were kids with a great spirit, with
Yeah.
a great energy, with, you know, like I said, my son could come in and when he smiled and he had a deep voice and would giggle like that, man, that could light up a room.
And one of the things we have in common deeply is that we both want the lives of our kids to count for something.
Yes,
That's why you're doing what you're doing.
yes,
That's why I wrote that book, and that's why I said yes to this movie offer. Because I feel like I'm teamed up now with Kevin as a force for good in the world.
yes,
And we're doing that a little with the book. Because I wrote that book, I get invited to high schools to speak, and I get to speak at high schools. I've been in high schools my whole life as a teacher, so I'm
Yes.
very, very comfortable speaking to high school kids. And this is an important story, and it's a compelling story that they can kind of identify with. And even though they're not an addict, they've got a better understanding of drugs than I wish they had. You know?
I know.
And-
They know a lot more
Yeah,
at a very young age. You know,
Yeah.
I speak all over the state. I go to treatment, go to rehabs, and I speak to the residents. And because they don't understand what they're doing to their families. They really, they don't have that concept. But now that they have, their brain is a little bit clearer. And I always ask the question, if you could go back and speak to yourself, what age would you be not to start drugs? And 12 is the overwhelming age. So, you know, bullying, ADHD, different things going on, divorce, you know, that they needed to escape from where they are. And that's the overwhelming majority of them. And then there's going to be a small group of kids that are just risk takers. You're always going to have those,
right.
you know, but
Yeah.
you know,
Kevin was a high anxiety kid. If he didn't have his homework done, I mean, he was labeled learning disabled, LD. And so that basically meant he had trouble reading. He didn't see the words the same way. But he worked at it, you know, the kid worked at it because he was a driven kid.
Yes.
But he did tell me that, he says, well, you know the anxiety that I had
Yes.
when I didn't have my homework done when I was going to school, or if I fumbled the football, or if I lost the wrestling match, or if I didn't score the goal that was going to win the game. Do you know how anxiety-ridden I was? He said, when I found pot, I medicated on that.
Yes.
It took some of that away, and it also had a social aspect with friends and you know.
And
so-
girls,
yeah,
let's be,
girls.
you know,
Yeah.
kids with the opposite sex, they need to take a little, they're scared to start to talk to them. They
Yeah,
want to,
Sure.
but you know, it's all of those things.
But I didn't think that he might be different than me or his brother or something like that. I didn't think about that gene for addiction,
Yes.
you know, that is so deep in him that he confessed was in him and that he didn't know what to do. That's what he said, you can't believe I want to be like this. You know, and I can understand it now.
Yeah, I
I
know.
understand it now. But I am, and I can see you feel the same way. I am pleased to have him back with me right now, even though it's only spirit. And Kevin died with a daughter that was 4 months old, and now she's 5.5, and we just had her the whole summer. She just went back to Iowa Saturday night, and
That's beautiful.
yeah, he at least he left us this beautiful girl.
Yes.
And now that now I've written a book, and now that we're making a movie of it, we have to figure out how we're going to tell her about Kevin. What age are we going to tell her about drugs and how her
Well,
father
and that's
died?
what I was just saying. So, you know,
Yeah.
there's different ways, you know. You have to, you know, Kevin didn't make a healthy choice. And he you know, you have to start, you know, just simple things, because at each age, each year, she's going to be able to absorb just a little bit more. But nothing to scare her or anything else, but she knows what it is to make a healthy decision. My grandson once said, we left church one day, you'll like this story. He goes, he calls me Mima. Mima, what does God look like? I go, you know, I haven't met him yet, I'm not sure. I go, but he's that voice that always tells you the right thing to do if you're just going to go down the wrong road. And he was looking at me, and he went like this, he went, I got to listen to that voice a little more often.
Yeah.
But that's, you know what, but I kept it simple. It's just simple things that they can really process. So, you know, for our kids that are in kindergarten, we need to build their self-esteem so that they're not so easily feeling anxiety or feeling that they haven't done something right. Just because you didn't get your homework done doesn't make you bad, and it doesn't make you that you did something wrong.
Right.
It just makes you perfectly human. So, you know, there has to be an appropriate level of stress for each age, too.
But once our child is addicted,
Yes.
it seems to me, or it seemed to me at the time, that only a connection to your higher power is going to give you the strength to beat this. And I still feel that way.
I absolutely feel that way.
I just couldn't give that to him.
You
You know,
have
it's
to
not something.
find it.
Yeah, it's not something that you can do for another person.
No.
That's like the 3 C's. You didn't cause it. You can't control it or cure it. You know.
You know, when I speak at different facilities now, I'm very tapped into my higher power. And I hear him loud and clear, who I'm supposed to go and stand near or talk to, or, you know, sometimes I'm having an internal dialogue, like, could you give me a minute? I'm still speaking. And he's still yelling at me to go here. And there must be, for me, when I, think about that person that I'm supposed to go towards has already started a dialogue with their higher power. And I'm there to validate or to give something more. But I look at it this way. If I give one person in a room of 100 people, if I help them, that they go on and they help one person who helps one, we're going to change a lot of lives that way.
Yeah,
Not going to change all of them,
yeah.
but if you change one each time you speak, and now when I go to different places and I go, if I change but one person here today, I've done a great job. Whose life am I going to change? And everybody raises their hand. Say, and sometimes I always tell them, just say hi to your higher power and see what happens. Open the door.
One of the most wonderful thing in my life right now is when I get an opportunity to feel Kevin's arm around me while I talk to other kids. And like you say, if you only helped one, that would be enough. And you don't know.
You don't know.
You don't know. You'll never know how many lives you save.
Absolutely.
But having Kevin as a guiding angel now, having him on my side to help people, because Kevin actually, when he was in recovery in Iowa, he got a job as a gambling addiction counselor. He was an addiction counselor for gamblers. He had a bachelor's of social work out of UMass.
Okay.
And so he was qualified, certified, whatever. And they say he was real good at it.
Of course he was. He knew exactly.
Yeah, and yet he still relapsed. He knew everything. He had been in enough rehabs. He had gone through the process, and it still wasn't enough. And I've got to believe that's the way it was going to happen no matter what. No matter what we did, we weren't going to save him. But now, even though Kevin's not alive in form, his spirit
Is
can
doing
do a lot of good. Perhaps through me, the two of us together. I'm sure you feel that way with Thomas.
Oh, my goodness,
That's what
you know.
motivates you to do what you're doing.
Absolutely gives me the strength.
Yeah.
And the motivation. And I honestly believe that it was our journey. It was, it's people sometimes don't believe me, but I was reading a book, and it was written by a female orthopedist who died in a kayaking accident. And I don't remember the name of the book, but I got to a certain point in the book, and it was right after Thomas passed that I was reading this book, something about going to heaven, and she also lost her middle son. But it got to a point in the book, and she was talking to her son that had passed when he was 5 or 6 years old, talking about going to college, and the little boy said back to her, "I'm not going to be old, Mommy." And I couldn't read the book anymore because it came back right to my mind. I knew exactly. I was on Indian Head Road with Thomas in the car, and we were discussing and he said to me, "I'm not going to be old, Mommy. I'm going to die young." And I said, "Don't ever speak like that. Don't talk like that."
Yeah.
And it gave me more clarity on that was his journey. It was our journey. We were picked long before we were Thomas and Mom.
I believe that
He
too.
changed me into the warrior that I've become. And he gives me the strength, and my faith grows every single day, that it gives me the ability to do what I need to do. And I can tap into that. So, it's not by accident. It's not by accident that you and I met. There are no accidents. There are no coincidences. People come together for a common cause, and you're not going to be able to stop that when we all come together. So the movie, if it starts to educate more people to get everyone going in the same direction, what can happen? It doesn't take a lot of people to make a big change.
And it's funny though, the things I learned from that 7 year struggle, the most important things don't have anything to do with addiction. They, you know, it seems like I learned that in any situation, only the love's going to matter here. There's nothing else that's going to count. No achievement or
Nothing else
any
is gonna
accomplishment.
count.
No, just the love. And since he died, it's more clear that forgiveness is the key to happiness, the key to getting through this. And I have to forgive myself for not being able to save him. And I
Well,
have to
you-
forgive him
Yeah.
for being the way he was. And everybody else who was on that story, everybody's doing the best they can.
Yes.
You know, they're all doing the best they can. And if you don't let go, I know people, and I'm sure you do too, that they can't get out of bed in the morning anymore.
I know.
They're not worth much anymore. Whereas you, and hopefully I am fighting for something now. I'm
Absolutely.
motivated, but I'm motivated by my son's love. I'm
Yes,
not motivated.
absolutely.
I'm not motivated by a
By his-
fear of anything.
You know, if someone was to say to me that if I could go back in time and never have Thomas, so I would never experience the pain that no one should experience as a parent, I would say no any day, because his life is so much bigger than his death and his addiction.
Yeah.
He brought me more joy and happiness and taught me how to love unconditionally. I mean, when you hold your baby, what do you feel? You know, you don't even know how much you're loved by your parents until you have that first child.
That's right.
You can't even imagine the depth and the breadth of it.
Yeah.
So, you know, what do we have? We have forgiveness. We have forgiveness and acceptance.
I wished I could have given it to that belief in that higher power to Kevin. I wish I could give it to everybody.
I know.
I wish I could give it to everybody. That's something though that's what you have for yourself, and then you can give it to somebody else, I guess, if they look at you and see how you react to certain things. Like, I'd like to think that the two of us are reacting well to what happens. You know, we're doing positive things.
And do you have bad days? I have bad days.
Yeah, sure.
But you know what I do? I get down on my hands and knees and I just say, I need my peaceful heart back. And in that moment in time, I have my peaceful heart back. So again, it's not that bad days aren't coming.
Right.
It's just that I know how to get through them a little bit better.
Yeah.
You know, and I wish I could give that to people. I can just be the example. I can just be, that's all I can be.
That's
And I can share my experiences. And I know who got me through there. I know who holds me up. More times than not, probably. Because I still, through it all, I was a single mom with 2 other kids that I had to show up and be a mom for.
yeah.
And after the fact, I had to be a mom for, because they were going through their own loss. So if I fell apart, then what happens?
That's right.
You have to show up.
That's right. And what you're doing is such a positive
What we're
thing.
doing.
What we're doing is such a positive thing for our son and for his place in the healing of the world here. You know?
Oh, absolutely.
You know,
And I think that the 2 of them, like you said, so I believe that they work on the other side, you know, doing
working
whatever
for
it
us.
is,
Yeah.
whether it's for us or it's for other people that are, you know, they go and whisper to. You know, my son saved 3 other kids. He actually went to their parents, and I didn't find that out till after he had passed. But he could help other people, but couldn't help himself. And, you know, you say, why? But the night before he passed, he looked at me and said, you know, Mom, I know there is a God, because the thoughts I have sometimes, I know they're not my own. And what a blessing that was for
Yeah.
me days later, because he did figure it out, just when it was the perfect timing
Yeah.
for him.
Yeah,
Kevin had it.
he did. He did. Those last days, he didn't. He had nothing but doubt. He had nothing but shame and guilt that he had let so many people down, and now he had relapsed, and everybody knew it. And he tried again, and he got clean for a few days, and then the drug dealer called him up and asked him for a ride across the river. They're on the Mississippi, ride across the river to pick some up. And Kevin, I talked to Kevin the night before he died, and he had actually overdosed the day before from this. He went over the river, he got the stuff, and then he did the heroin up, and he overdosed. And cops had to come and take him to the hospital, and I found out that he had overdosed, and I talked to him that night. And it was an eerie thing, because he said, "I've never been so scared in all my life." He says, "This is so much different." And he had overdosed before. This wasn't his first overdose. And he had said, "I've never been so scared. This is so much different than any other time. I don't want to die. And I don't know what to do. I'm so scared." And I thought, Kevin, this is rock bottom. This is the time that you're going to make it. This is what you needed. You know, you needed this. You're scared. And I thought, okay, good.
Good.
You know?
Yeah.
But he was so scared, I think, as I look at it now, because he knew that he still had that heroin that he had just overdosed on the night before. And he knew he couldn't say no to it. And everybody was so upset with him that they left him alone. And he did it again.
But he would have found a way to do it again, whether people were with him all the time.
Yeah.
But before we leave, because I can't believe it's an hour already, tell us where to go, because I know you're raising money for the film.
Yeah, we want
And
to
I think that the film will bring, it's such a point, it's our story. It's
Yeah.
everybody's story.
Yeah.
But other people need to see the journey.
Yeah.
They need to see the journey.
ForgivingKevin.com is the website. You'll be able to become part of the movie, really. You can donate and become part of the movie. But go to ForgivingKevin.com if you're interested in this, because there's going to be a lot of ways to help. And we're going to try to make a difference.
It's an important story, and I know it's on Amazon also, that you can buy the book.
Mm-hmm.
But get the book, read the story, and for people struggling, I think it'll make a lot of sense for the moms or the family members. And even if you're not struggling, to have a little bit more compassion for people that do struggle with the disease of addiction. I think that's what we all need a little bit more of, is a lot more compassion for each other.
That's a beautiful thought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even if you do one nice thing once a day, what a difference the world would be. But
That's how you heal.
that is how you heal. It's very empowering to know that you can help change the direction of somebody's life by telling your story.
Thank you, Linda.
Thank you, Larry, for coming tonight.
My pleasure.
Thank everybody for joining us. ForgivingKevin.com. Please go and check it out. Buy the book. Even if it's $5 that you can donate, just do it. Thank you so much. We'll see you again next week.
Another dark hotel room, musty peeling pale. Time to pull back those shades.
March 14, 2012, my son Thomas lost his battle with the disease of addiction.